It's such a beautiful afternoon on the Thames. It's about 20 to 5 and the tide is on the way out. So I've popped down here to see what the tide's left out for me to find. And the first thing I've seen down here is some stoneware just here that just emerging out of the mud underneath these stones. So it looks like a little ink pot, a little Victorian stoneware ink pot. So let's see if I'm right, and let's see if it's going to be in one piece. I think we might be in luck. Well, kind of. It's a little bit chipped there on the top, but it's mostly in one piece. Let's give it a little rinse. Let's give it a little rinse off. We're about to get some waves. Clipper has just gone past. Yeah, so here we have it. So like I said, it is a little chipped there around the edge. I'm going to leave it for somebody else to find, I think, because I do have quite a few of these. But a lovely first find of the evening. Now this goose, I think you can hear his echo. He thinks it's another goose. Silly goose. Are you looking for a goose friend? Now, what is this I can see just down here? Just here. What's that? Is it part of a brooch? Oh yeah, look, it's a little bird. Let's just go over here a minute so I can rinse it off. Looks like a pheasant or something, or some kind of bird. And a sprig of leaves, or a little branch. Let's take a look. Oh, isn't that adorable? It's actually got a real piece of weed in there. It's got some real plant tangled up. That's adorable. Now that to me looks as if it could be a pheasant. I could be wrong. By the way, take a moment to listen to that beautiful bird song in the background there. Well, that's really pretty. I wonder who wore that once upon a time, many years ago. I'm also now looking at this, which looks like a metal lid. Quite decorative as well. You can see where the hinges used to be just there. So probably this was part of a makeup compact. Some kind of tin anyway. I'm actually really looking forward to polishing that up. Doesn't have a name on it, does it? Maybe on the inside. It's got Special, isn't it? Now look, there is evidence of what could be a bottle here. Could be one of those teaspoon bottles, I think. Let's see if the mud has protected it for the last few years. And whether it's intact. Oh, I think we're in luck. I think I could be right. Yeah, not teaspoons, but tablespoons. Yeah, here we go, look. Look at that. Perfect. Perfect bottle. Welcome to the world, bottle. Yeah, there we go, look. Tablespoons. Let's give it a little rinse. Oh, and the other thing I've just seen here are a couple of these kind of torn ends of bullet. I don't know how else to describe them. And I found a few of these. I'm not quite sure why they're like that, or even really what they are. Are they torn bits of bullet? Maybe you can tell me. Anyway, back to the bottle. And just look at that lovely imprint there. Isn't that great? Get the mud off my trowel. Take this bottle down to the water. Let's clean this off. Well, it's full of mud and I'm not going to try and get that out here. I'll do that later at home, but you can see some lovely iridescence on there. Look at that. What a result. I want to show you what I've got here. I saw some leather poking out of the mud and I did a little investigation, and this looks like it could be a tiny shoe. A really tiny one. Like a child's shoe maybe. Look at that. It looks as if that could be the sole of a teeny tiny shoe. A child's shoe. Pop that in my bag and see if I can find out a little bit more about it when I get home. That's adorable. A tiny little mudlark shoe maybe. Okay, going back to the shoe. I couldn't resist taking another look. I've turned it over, so we've got the tiny sole here, the tiniest little sole, and then turning it over, there is this little bit here, and the same on the other side, like that, and you can just see where it would have sort of, the heel would have gone there at the end, and then the little toes in there. Oh, now leather is notoriously difficult to preserve, and it goes very, very hard when you get it out of the mud. I need to take some advice here to find out how to keep it supple if possible. Yeah, and you can see the back there, the seam. It would have been the back of the shoe. Yeah, it's definitely a tiny weeny little baby shoe. Now that is absolutely adorable. And it just conjures up the image of a tiny child. doesn't it? A tiny child from long ago. And how long ago, I don't know. I mean, Victorian, maybe older. A little tiny soul from the Thames foreshore. Now just down here, I've seen there's a little pipe eroding out of the mud. Just there, you see? But of course at the moment, I have no idea what's underneath. It could be just part of a bowl, but I can see some milling there along the top of the bowl. It looks like it's going to be a 17th century pipe. Let's have a look. Ah, look. You can see actually that there's no stem. Let's have a look at the bowl. Anyway, here we go. Out you come. Oh, you know what? There may be a stamp on the bottom there. Oh, that would be lovely if there was, but I'm not absolutely sure at the moment. I think there might be a stamp on the bottom of the heel, which would be wonderful. I still can't see. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is actually. Wipe it on my jeans. Yes, yeah, I think that, yes, there is a stamp. Well, that is wonderful. Do you know what? That totally makes up for the fact that there's no stem. And I will take a close-up picture of that and we can see if we can find out who the maker was. It's always exciting when you find something with a stamp on it, a maker's mark. It just makes it so much more interesting. Whoever made this pipe is long gone, but he's left his mark, and we might be able to find out who he was and where he made pipes. Fabulous. Always check your pipe bowls, everyone. Always check your bowls. Now, take a look down there. I can see what looks like, it almost looks like a bottleneck, but I don't think it is. It has the appearance of something wooden. Just hear that. What could that be? What could this be? It's clearly something. Ooh, what's that? Now that could be part of an instrument, maybe. I'm thinking something woodwind, but I don't know. Let's rinse it off and see what we've got. Don't let me leave my trowel. Oh, now what's this? What is it? It could be bone. And I have no idea what it is. It's full of mud. It's a tube. What it once was something, or part of something. I wonder what. Maybe you may have an idea. It's one of those Thames mysteries, which I do love. I love a good mystery. Right, here you are, trowel. Come back. Come back. I know what you're like, trying to run away all the time. I usually attach my trowel, but it started making a really annoying noise. So, how long will it be before I lose it, I wonder? I've just seen a bottleneck down here. Wouldn't it be just absolutely marvellous if there was an entire bottle on the end of the neck? It's just here, can you see? And there is some glass here. Oh dear, I've got butterflies in my stomach now. I've got butterflies. Could there be a whole bottle underneath here? Oh. Let's see. Let's see if there is. It could be a nice old wine bottle. It's not an onion bottle, but even so, it's likely to be fairly old. Okay. Oh, it's looking good. This thing here on the end of my trowel is making a really annoying noise, so I'm just going to take it off and continue. So give me a moment. Right, here I am back again. There's also just been a clipper that's gone by, so we are going to get some wake. This is looking good. I think this bottle's going to be in one piece. Yeah, here we go. Look at that. It's an old beer bottle. Oops. Nearly got me. It's an old beer bottle, and yeah, it's pretty nice actually. Look at that, lovely. I'm not sure how old, but at least Victorian, maybe Georgian. Out you come. Perfect. Another 18th century clay pipe. And let's admire the pipey hole that it's been in for hundreds of years. Isn't that lovely? It's like a little artwork, isn't it? Just fits perfectly. Now come along with me here and tell me when you see the button. Have you seen it yet? It's just here, look, just there. Now will there be anything on it? Let's see. Nope. Pretty black button though. Very nice. Hi everyone, thank you very much indeed for watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed that excursion, mudlarking along the River Thames, searching for historical artefacts and odd bits and bobs that have been thrown or lost in the river over the centuries by goodness knows who. And the Thames came up trumps again, as usual. We've got a lovely little selection of finds here to talk about. And I'm actually going to be focusing on a rather miraculous transformation of one of them. But before we get to that, I just want to say a really big hello to each and every one of you. I hope that you're well and in good spirits and in good health, and that your week or your weekend is going really well. So let's take a look at these objects here quickly before we move on to the main event, which is the miraculous transformation. And I wonder if you can guess which of those objects was transformed into something really rather beautiful. Let's see if you're going to be right. So quickly then, let's have a look at the other objects. And here is one of my favourite things, and actually this has been transformed rather beautifully as well, from a very muddy little pheasant. He's turned into rather a beautiful pheasant there, sitting on his branches. I'm supposing that there would have been quite a few stones in this pheasant and in the leaves as well. Maybe late Victorian, Georgian, I'm not too sure, but he's rather splendiferous, and I think I may put him in a little frame all on his own, just to show off his astounding beauty. I wonder how he ended up in the mud and who used to wear him. I suppose I could get my friend Wendy to mend him, and I could wear him myself. So that's him. Here is another piece that you saw me find not very far from that brooch actually, which I have polished up, and as you can see there's a nice pattern on there. Unfortunately there's no name, but I think it must come from a makeup compact. You can see where the hinges were there. Let's talk about this clay pipe bowl here. Now this clay pipe I think dates to around about 1660 to 1680, and often during this period the clay pipe makers used to stamp a little design or their initials on the heel. And in fact I've been just refreshing my knowledge of these makers' marks on the Society for Clay Pipe Research website, which is absolutely brilliant. It's such a great resource if you're interested in clay pipes. And I was looking to see when they used to do heel stamps like that. And so it's between about 1580 and 1730. Now, mostly when you find these 17th century pipes, you don't get a mark on the bottom. It's a little bit like a Thames tombola. You turn it over and it's really exciting when you see that there is a maker's mark. So if you are out on the foreshore looking for clay pipes and clay pipe bowls, always make sure you check, because you may get a really nice surprise. And my friend Anna Borzello, one of the ladies who larks, she recently was going through her clay pipe collection and she's discovered lots and lots with beautiful maker's marks. I'm going to put a photo up for you to see. So on mine here, there is some initials, and it's the initials TA. Now there is a really good database, again on the Society for Clay Pipe research page and the Pipe Archive, where we can have a look at all the different names of clay pipe makers back through the centuries. And so for TA, there was a Thomas Austin, and he really fits the dates because he was making clay pipes in London from 1673 to 1696. So Thomas Austin would certainly be a possible candidate for this clay pipe. And there's also a Thomas Anderton, and he was active at least in 1663. So maybe Thomas Anderton or maybe Thomas Austin could have been one of the people who made this clay pipe here. I like that. It's a lot more interesting than finding a clay pipe with absolutely nothing on it. So what else have I got here? Now I've got this strange tubular thing here, which initially I thought could be part of a musical instrument, but I'm not sure. Now it's really faded now, the colour, you can see from when I pulled it out of the mud, and I'm pretty certain it's bone. It's got a thread there, so it was definitely used to screw into something. Both sides have got sort of screw things there. It's got a nice feel about it, and it's obviously been used for something in the past, but what, I don't know. What else have I got here? Oh yeah, so I found a few bottles. I didn't actually take the the tablespoon bottle or the ink pot, but I did bring home this bottle, and I think it's a Victorian or a Georgian beer bottle. It's a really beautiful olive colour, and it's got a really nice little bubble. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's got a lovely bubble in there anyway. So I'll add that to my bottle collection on my windowsill with the sun streaming through all these beautiful bottle colours. Right, so you may have noticed that the only object I haven't mentioned is the little shoe. Well, that's not quite true. There's those split bullets. Now I do find quite a few of those in that area where I was searching, and I'm not quite sure what they are. They look as if they've been sort of ripped apart on impact. Maybe some of you have got some better explanation that you can give me. I've never really worked out why they're there, and I've never found them anywhere else. And there is the southeast London area, by the way. Right, so the little shoe. Well, what I did with the shoe was I got home and I put it in water, because I have learned that if you don't put it in water, then the shoe just dries up and you just can't do anything with it. So I put it in water, and then I contacted my friend Monica Butling-Smith, because I know that she is a bit of a whiz with leather. So she said, Nicola, put it in an envelope and send it to me, and I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can restore it for you. So that's what I did, and that was a few months ago now. And recently she invited me over to her house to see what she had done with the little shoe. So we're all invited. So let's pile on over to Monica's house. Monica, thank you so much for inviting me here today, or us today, me and my viewers, to your magical mudlarking room.
Welcome. Lovely to have you here.
And I've been telling everybody about the work that you have done on the little tiny shoe.
Oh, it's been a labour of absolute love. I'm so honoured that you trusted me with it, because it was so delicate. It was so perfect. So when you gave it to me, I don't know if you remember, it had been in a water bath for quite a while. You'd cleaned it very carefully, so it was clean and totally flat and no stitches. So the first thing I did was try to work out how all the pieces went together. So I laid the little bits of leather on a bit of card and drew an outline, and then obviously cut the outline out, and then basically had some fun trying to stick the paper together to see what it would look like. And this is basically what I came up with, which was just the most sweet little shoe. Reminded me of my own children's shoes when they were, I don't know, about 18 months old. Not so kind of padding, walking, not in a pram anymore, but not really in sturdy shoes for lots of walking, just a few little steps here and there. So once I'd worked out how it all went together, we had the long process of putting the shoe in solution so that it could start to be preserved, because otherwise it would decay and crumble and dry out. And we've all seen leather that's come out the river and just been left, and it shrinks and dries horribly.
Yeah, that's my experience. I have to admit, I've retrieved a few shoes, and then you leave them for a day or two, and then they just go crisp and dry.
And it's very hard. Once they've gone crisp, it's very hard to go back. So this was sat in solution. I think it was actually in for quite a long time, mostly because Christmas came and went. But actually, I think the longer it is in there, the better. And then when it comes out, you have to dab it dry and then let it gently air dry, and you're left with really lovely, pliable, flexible leather that's just like when it was first used. The only thing you have to be careful of is it's still obviously 150 years old or so, and the stitch holes are very, very delicate. So when it comes to sewing, you have to sew really carefully and really slowly.
Oh, so exciting.
So here's the unveiling.
Oh my goodness.
So it's all in acid-free tissue. And here we have the absolute beautiful little baby shoe.
Oh, look at that, everyone. Look at that. Isn't it gorgeous?
Turn it round very slowly, so you can see it from all sides. See the little button. This was one from my collection that I put on it because it was perfect. It's just the right size. And if you look at the back, you can see where the little baby was walking, and he wore out his heel at the back, or her heel. I could have possibly patched that, but I thought it's much more kind to the original shoe to leave it, because it tells its story really.
Yeah.
I remember my babies wearing out their shoes in exactly the same spot. And I love the little buttonhole. So if you look at it very closely, you can see they've got, I don't know if you can see from there, it's got a little round circle cut out with a slit, which made it easier to poke the button through the little buttonhole. And it all came out perfectly. When I stitched it together, it had obviously been sewn inside out so that you have no seam along there. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have to sew it inside out in order to replicate this. But sewing it inside out is terrifying, because you get to the point where you've sewn all this around here, and then you have to poke it inside out, and the stitch holes, when you've put the needles through these little individual holes, it is so delicate, and the leather is so friable. So I was absolutely terrified it was going to tear along the stitches, but it didn't, because I was very careful and very gentle. I also sewed all the way around here. So along here they had stitch holes, which are not particularly necessary. It's not stitching one piece of leather to another and along here, but probably at the time it would have been done maybe in a contrasting colour, so maybe little white stitches just to emphasise the cut of the shoe. So I stitched all along there and round there, all round there.
Hand stitched?
Hand stitched, yes. It had to be hand stitched. I couldn't have put a machine on it. It's far too delicate. And I put a few extra little strengthening stitches on that seam there, because otherwise it would have gone at that point where the cutaway was for the little latchet strap on there. But it was an absolute labour of love. And
it's such a result. It's absolutely beautiful. Can you turn it around again really slowly?
there's a little heel.
Oh yes, and can we have a look at the sole?
The other thing that's been a bit of a quandary, when you gave it to me, Nicola, you remember this little bit of leather here?
Yes.
So this was found with the original shoe. Having had the shoe apart in pieces, I have compared the stitch marks on this to any potential stitch marks on the shoe, and they don't match up. So even though they were found together, I have not been able to find where on this shoe this bit of leather would have come from. And I have tried every single place you could imagine, like is it a little tongue? Is it a little support at the back? I don't know, could it be an insert on the inside? But nowhere do the stitches line up. So I've wondered if possibly when the baby had a hole in the back, if Mama put a piece of leather on the inside and just taped it in or glued it in order to prevent it rubbing or something, or looking poor. Nobody wants to look like they've got holes in their shoes or their kids' shoes. So maybe it was a little temporary fix that when the shoe was in the river gradually came apart. But I haven't tried to sew it in where it shouldn't be, because that would just be wrong. So I've left it separate.
Yeah.
And that's up to you whether you want to put it in the shoe or not. And I reckon the shoe probably dates from about 1850 or so. It has been machine sewed, and surprisingly enough, I was looking up the history of sewing machines thinking, well, where does that put it? Leather sewing machines were invented before cloth sewing machines, which was a real surprise to me. I didn't realise that. And they were apparently invented about 1830, and shoe leather, so it could be from that period onwards. But I think looking at the style, we're looking more 1850.
Thank you so much for doing that. If it was left to me, I have to say it would not be looking like that now. Thank you ever so much.
Oh, well, I look forward to seeing it on your shelves, and then it'll be in its rightful place. It might go to an exhibition before though, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
I shall put it back in its little paper to protect it.
It's not for no reason that I entrusted this shoe to you, because I know that you are a little bit of a shoe expert and you've had quite a lot of experience renovating Thames found shoes. And these shoes here look wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about them, please?
Well, probably my first shoe that I found, I was ever so excited about finding this, is this one. I really wish I'd found it more recently when I knew more about shoes and shoe preservation, but it was literally my first really good Thames shoe. If you can see the shoe on the back, that's the one it is basically a similar shoe to. So this one was 1623, the painting was painted. It would have been a contemporary shoe, a latchet shoe. So you can see the latchet there, which actually incidentally is the same as on your little baby shoe. You've got a little latchet there. These shoes would have had a big fancy rose on the top that could be detached and put on whichever shoe you wanted. And they were made with little holes in the leather so that your fancy red stockings would show through. And if you look over here, I don't know if you can see the light, it's got little moons and hearts, and there's little stars embossed around the outside. I don't know if you can see
Oh,
that
look at
detail.
that, beautiful. Look at that
It's
detail.
so beautiful. And it's got a stacked leather heel. They've used wooden pegs instead of iron nails. Wooden pegs were often a sign of a wealthy shoe because the owner would have had beautiful tiles in their house, and if you had iron nails it would scratch the tiles. So wealthy people often had wooden pegs in their shoes because it wouldn't damage their own tiles. And in total contrast, we have this old monster, which is a big old Dockers shoe. I'm afraid to say I didn't do any preservation on this. This is pretty much dried as found. It's such a great big clumping beast, and I actually quite like the fact that it's in its raw state. But if you look at it, you can see over here, these are salts that have come out from the leather as the shoe has dried. It's not particularly good condition to have that happening with your shoe. So we now recommend with leather that you soak it in water for many, many hours. So, which is what I've done with your shoe, and also with this shoe, which I absolutely adore. This is a Dockers clog dating about 1850. So actually, this Docker could have been working at the same time as your little baby was being wheeled around in his perambulator. So this Dockers shoe is leather on the top and wood on the bottom. The wood is made of alder, preserves actually really well in anaerobic mud. Alder is a very close grain wood, so it was perfect to use for clogs. Especially as clogs quite often were used in areas that were quite wet. So if you were working in a brewery or a fishery or a laundry, all these places which were damp and wet, and it would have two benefits. One, it wouldn't rot, whereas a leather sole might rot, but also when it holds you up off the ground, it's quite insulating because it lifts you up off the cold, hard floor, so it's actually quite warm to wear. And it also has the most bizarre thing, it's got a built-in rocker. So if you look at that, if you imagine wearing a wooden shoe, if it had a totally flat bottom, it would be really uncomfortable to walk in. Whereas this is very much like our modern fit flops in that it's got a built-in rocker, so it makes it easier to walk. The leather is in perfect condition. When I found it, it was absolutely flat, like your baby shoe. All the stitching had gone. So I had to reshape it and dry it out very carefully. So I packed it with various different things, let it dry very carefully and oiled it regularly and did all the little stitching along here. And this stitching, very different from your baby shoe. This is very hard, tough leather. And the only way to stitch this was using a curved needle. So I had a curved needle and pliers to pull it out, and that way I could get the stitching done there. And as I was going through the holes, I could almost feel the ghost of this cobbler patting me on the back saying, "You do a good job there, Monica. Make sure you do it properly." So that was quite special doing that. I really loved this shoe. This was a joy to work on. And would you like to come and have a look in my chest of drawers over there?
There's more?
There is more.
Yes, please.
Okay, so these are the complete ones. But as we all know, on the Thames, we do find lots and lots of partial ones. So down in here...
Oh my goodness, there's a soul drawer.
The drawer of lost souls, indeed. So we have all sorts in here, hundreds. And they're all kind of packed in little bags of more or less appropriate age. So this one I quite like because we've got some quite old... We've got one of those Henry VIII duck...
Oh gosh, when does that date? Was that Tudor?
Yeah, that's Tudor. So that's when they get cow mouth shoes, when they had a really wide toe, and they'd have like the split leather on the top of the shoe, which would look quite pretty with contrasting silk poking through. And then I love that sort of like poulain top, this tiny little skinny little one. Yeah, there's quite a few of these oldie ones.
Look at all of these.
Oh, there are so many. Oh, honestly, there are so many. Where are we? Let's go down a few. The ones in bags tend to be a bit more exciting. There's some...
I was struck by how well organised your soul drawer is.
You've got to look after your lost souls, don't you? Otherwise, they'd be sad and lonely. This one I'm going to put on the table here. This is really exciting. I love this one. So this one has still got... this is actually the complete shoe. So it's a stacked leather heel. Stacked leather heels are very hard to dry without them warping a little bit because you can't really put them under anything flat to hold them. But if you look at this very, very weird shape here, So this is the 3 layers of the shoe. So this is one shoe. You've got a heel,
strange.
a base, another layer on the top there, and this layer on the top here. So this was basically a silk shoe.
Ooh.
Because there was no leather, but the silk material had to be folded over this little bit here, under there. And I've actually got the buckle that went on the top of that, because I was literally digging it up in layers. So this was the buckle that went over the top of there.
Oh, marvellous. So when does this date to?
So this was Georgian, I reckon, yeah.
Yeah, look at that buckle. That buckle actually was there with the shoe,
Yeah,
was it?
yeah, it was all in that layer. So it was kind of like squished like that. So I just pulled it out.
And so the silk then was rotted away.
Yeah.
So that's the only part that's missing.
Which is how I realised if the buckle was there and there was no other leather, then it had to be silk. But also this is the only time I've had that construction. But if you imagine the wadges of material that you'd have to fold and tuck under in order to get the shape. And then, oh gosh, if I go down right at the bottom, there are other little treasures in here, but I'm not going to bore you with all of them. Let me just come over here.
Got little animal shoes in there.
Oh, that's on other shelves.
Oh,
this one is a Tudor shoe.
Oh my
So this is a little bit older. So this one I still need to stitch. I haven't stitched it yet. So this is a work in progress at the moment. This was done, do you remember me telling you about the wooden pegs?
Yes.
So these are the wooden pegs. These are replacement ones. It did have its own wooden pegs, but as they in fact still got some of them in existence, as the wood dries, it shrinks and then drops out. So I've got some replacement modern wooden shoe pegs. So this was basically up to about there. I've just held it in roughly with string at the moment, so it looks a bit of a mess until I sew it properly.
Can you show us the sole? Like, hold the... gosh, yes, look at that. So there would have been wooden pegs as opposed to metal nails.
Yeah. Gosh. And the interesting thing about this shoe is coming out of here were some tufts of fur. So when I took this to Kate Sumnall, who was the Finance Liaison Assistant at the time, she was saying it looked like rabbit possibly. So that was possibly a fancy fur trim on the top of it. So to actually find a lump of organic fur still attached to the shoe is quite interesting. It just shows how fancy the shoe was at some point. But what I also find really fascinating is when you look at the heel and you hear the expression that's been cobbled together. Well, if you look at some of the shoes we find here, you really see where cobbled together comes from. They've got a little hole and they literally yank up that bit, shove a bit of leather in, saw it off, and it can be a bit of leather off some other shoe. You can sometimes see bits of pattern that are on there. They literally just cobble it together to make it work. So it could have been a rich person's shoe originally that wore out and got sold down the market and kept going down and down and down until it ended up in possession of a poorer person. So if you don't mind me climbing up on that shelf where all my shoes are, excuse me, I have also, this is quite fun. I rescued this from the foreshore. So a nice little shoe last for repairing shoes. So this was a big old pile of rust when I found it, covered with concrete, and I chipped all the concretions off and then preserved the iron.
Well
so
done.
that's in really nice condition. And also up here, we've got a couple of these. So these are patterns. So they would have had, if I do one at a time, here we go. They would have had a piece of wood on the top here, attached to those nails, and the wood would have like leather straps and a leather heel piece, and you would put them over the top of your shoes. So basically, not one of these obviously, because it's already got a wooden sole. It'd be like that, so you could walk along and it would lift you out of the mud. So it would keep you 1 or 2 inches out of the mud and raw sewage on London streets. So, and they come in various different shapes and patterns.
Amazing. When do they date to?
These are medieval Tudor, probably up to about 1800, I think. So I think these ones are probably sort of Tudorish in date. So, and that little shape is very Tudor. And you know what? I have some more baby things. Look in this little bag, because you've got to have little baby shoes in a little bag. So here are some other little bits and bobs. So we have, probably this is like an early Victorian boot, which is probably, I don't know, maybe a 2-year-old. So that's a bit older than your shoe. Maybe 2 to 3 on that one. But then this one is absolutely beautiful. Look how tiny that is.
Look at that.
And that's a turn shoe. That one is probably Tudor or so in date. So the tiniest little leather shoe must have been quite a wealthy family. And if we compare that to your little baby shoe here, look how tiny it is. So that's that's a newborn. That one, which is really, really tiny. So yeah, I quite like that one. This one is a little Victorian shoe that's still got its little heel. So this would be a first walker. So this is in date, about the same age as yours, and a baby just slightly older who's walking a bit more. So that probably would have been a little bootie, a little leather boot. So yeah, these are quite
absolutely
sweet.
adorable.
This is my absolute favourite though. I love that one.
Oh,
Little Bubbas.
do you think that you were a cobbler in a past life?
I wonder. I did. Honestly, when I was stitching the clog, I had goosebumps. It was really going through those stitch holes with a curved needle, pulling it out and going through each time the same hole that he did. It really did give me goosebumps. It was quite weird. So maybe.
Well, wasn't that amazing? I told you it was going to be a miraculous transformation, didn't I? And I would never have imagined that mucky big handful of leather could have been transformed into something as beautiful as that little shoe. Monica really is so very talented, and you definitely have to have some kind of cobbling past, Monica. Thank you so very much. Let me show you what happens if you haven't got any cobbling talents. Here is a clog that I found a little while back. And unfortunately, my restoration skills are not like Monica's. And so when I say that the leather goes crispy, this is crispy leather for you. Very crispy. And basically, this is a clog. It would have been a clog worn by somebody on the river. And because I didn't restore it properly, it's basically falling apart. You saw the lovely polished sole of the clog Monica showed us. Well, there's mine, which is yeah, you can see that it's all dried out. There's some metal around the edge here, and it's coming away from the leather. I did half-heartedly put something in the middle there to try and keep the shape, and I will hold on to it because you can see what it was, and I don't have any other clog examples, but I may have to go on some restoration classes because this is not up to the standard of my fellow lady who larks, Monica. And by the way, it was really annoying when I found this. I thought I was filming myself pulling it out of the mud, but it was one of those instances, luckily a rare instance, when you think you're filming when you're not, and then you're filming when you think you're not filming. So there was lots of footage of my pocket and none of me finding this lovely clog. So there you are. The other thing I wanted to show you quickly is that I have a little collection of postcards, and one of them is this one here, which is a group of mudlarks in London back in the late 19th century. This postcard was sent in 1903 to a lady in France, a lady who is called Madame Letton, 16 Rue Roquepine, Paris, France. And it was sent, by the looks of it, by her son Gaston. But anyway, the reason I'm showing it to you is because look at those little children there. And in my mind, that little shoe could have been worn by a little child just like one of those there, squelching around in the mud, and then their shoe comes off. So that's it from me, and it's been a bit of a long video today, so for those of you still watching, well done. Thank you, and thank you indeed for watching my videos and for all the support that you give me, for all your comments, for for your feedback, for your emails. I'm always thrilled to hear from you. And also thank you very much for your donations to my Ko-fi account or to Super Thanks. But most of all, thank you very much just for being you. You're all fantastic and I appreciate you a great deal. And so I'm looking forward to seeing you again very soon for more mudlarking adventures. And so I'm going to leave you now with a little piece that I put to music showing again that beautiful transformation from a mucky piece of leather to an adorable shoe. I hope that you enjoy it and you have a super week, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
Here is a little mock-up of your baby shoe that you found earlier this year. I've made a replica in card just to practice piecing it together to see how it would all work. And I have my leather all ready to stitch, all preserved. It is always the most nerve-wracking moment before you start. But here goes. Wish me luck. So I've just finished sewing up the back seam of the little baby shoe, and it's starting to look rather good. You can see, bless him, the little munchkin was running along, wore out the heel of his shoe. Well look, I have to sew the button on the front. Look at this adorable little buttonhole. It's a tiny little river-worn button, ready to go on the thread. And here we have the finished shoe. But it looks very cute now. I've put acid-free paper in so that it holds its shape. I so hope Nicola likes it. It's just so cute. A little button on the front. Just imagine trying to fiddle that on a wriggly little baby.